The sound of my mom's voice cracking over the phone will haunt me forever. She had just finished telling me about the surprise slideshow she'd been working on for 3 weeks, filled with old photos and video messages from relatives across the country, all for my parents' 25th anniversary dinner tonight. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. The same dinner Emma had just texted me she wouldn't be attending, because Tyler was throwing a legendary house party that couldn't be missed. The same Tyler who'd been circling around my girlfriend like a vulture for the past 6 months. But here's the twist that nobody saw coming, including Emma herself. While she was choosing to celebrate with someone who throws parties, I ended up celebrating love with someone who actually understood what it meant. And by the end of that night, everything changed in ways that would leave Emma questioning every choice she'd ever made. My name is Jake, and 3 years ago, I thought I had found my forever person in Emma Rodriguez. We met during our sophomore year at the University of Colorado, Denver, in what felt like a scene straight out of a romantic comedy. She was struggling with her marketing textbook at Mountain Brew Café, papers scattered everywhere, looking completely overwhelmed. I offered to help, and what started as a study session turned into a 4-hour conversation about everything from career dreams to childhood memories. Emma was magnetic in ways that drew people to her effortlessly. She had this infectious laugh that could light up an entire room, and when she focused her attention on you, it felt like you were the only person in the world who mattered. Her confidence was intoxicating, especially to someone like me, who had always been more reserved and thoughtful. She was studying communications with dreams of working in public relations, while I was focused on my business degree, planning to eventually help expand my family's small marketing firm. Those early days were incredible. Emma would surprise me with handwritten notes tucked into my textbooks, and we'd spend entire weekends exploring Denver's hiking trails and food scene. She got along wonderfully with my parents, Robert and Linda, who had built their own love story over 25 years of marriage. My mom would always comment on how Emma's energy brought such life to our family dinners, and my dad appreciated her ambitious spirit. But looking back now, I can see the warning signs that I chose to ignore because I was so deeply invested in what I thought we were building together. Emma had this pattern of making commitments that seemed heartfelt in the moment, only to find reasons to change or cancel them when something more appealing came along. It started small during our first year together. She'd promised to attend my intramural basketball games, then skip them for last-minute plans with her sorority sisters. She'd commit to helping me study for major exams, then disappear to attend parties I hadn't even heard about until after the fact. Each time, her explanations were reasonable enough. Her sorority needed her for an emergency situation, or someone was going through a crisis and needed support. I admired her loyalty, too. Her friends and didn't want to be the possessive boyfriend who demanded all of her time. My parents had taught me that healthy relationships required trust and independence. So I convinced myself that Emma's social butterfly nature was just part of who she was. The pattern escalated during our junior year when Emma started canceling plans that involved my family. The first major incident happened during my grandmother's 80th birthday celebration. Emma had promised to be there, had even helped me pick out the perfect gift, but called an hour before the party to say her roommate was having a mental health crisis and needed her support. I spent the entire evening fielding questions from relatives about where my girlfriend was, making excuses and feeling embarrassed. 2 weeks later, I saw photos on social media of Emma at a rooftop party that same night, laughing and dancing with people I didn't recognize. When I asked her about it, she became defensive, saying that her roommate's crisis had resolved quickly and she didn't want to waste a perfectly good Saturday night. She accused me of being controlling and not trusting her judgment about how to handle difficult situations. This became Emma's go-to response whenever I tried to address these disappointments. She would flip the conversation to make me the problem, suggesting that I was too rigid or that I didn't understand how complicated her social obligations were. She'd remind me of all the times she had shown up for me, which were genuine and meaningful, making me question whether I was being unreasonable in my expectations. The most painful part was watching how this affected my parents, especially my mother. Linda had grown up in a family where commitments were sacred, where showing up for people was considered one of the highest forms of love and respect. She never said anything directly critical about Emma, but I could see the disappointment in her eyes each time Emma failed to appear at family gatherings she had promised to attend. My father, Robert, was more direct in his quiet way. During one of our weekend fishing trips, he mentioned that consistency was one of the most important qualities in any relationship, romantic or otherwise. He told me about how my mother had never once failed to show up for something that mattered to their family in 24 years of marriage. Even when it meant sacrificing her own preferences or convenience, the breaking point should have come 6 months ago when Emma promised to attend my college graduation ceremony and called that morning to say she had gotten food poisoning. I later discovered through mutual friends that she had been out until 4 in the morning at a club downtown, celebrating the end of finals with people from her communications program that I had never met. When confronted, she insisted that she really had felt sick that morning, implying that I was being paranoid and accusatory. But instead of ending things then, I doubled down on trying to make our relationship work. I started planning dates around her social calendar, making sure to give her plenty of advance notice about family events, and even began declining some invitations myself to show that I understood the importance of balance. I thought that if I could just be more understanding and flexible, Emma would eventually prioritize our relationship and my family the way I had always prioritized hers. The irony wasn't lost on me that while I was bending over backward to accommodate Emma's unpredictable nature, she never seemed to extend the same consideration to me or my family. Her parents lived in California, and in 3 years of dating, I had met them exactly twice during brief holiday visits. Emma's world was filled with friends who seemed to exist primarily for entertainment purposes, while my world was built around deeper, more lasting connections that apparently meant nothing to her. As we entered our senior year and began discussing post-graduation plans, I convinced myself that Emma's flightiness was just a phase of college life that would resolve itself. Once we entered the real world together, we talked about moving in together, about building careers in Denver's growing business scene, about eventually getting married and starting a family. These conversations felt genuine and exciting, giving me hope that our relationship was finally maturing into something stable and permanent. That hope was about to be tested in ways I never could have imagined. My parents' 25th anniversary was approaching, a milestone they had been looking forward to for months. They had planned an intimate dinner at Milano's, the same Italian restaurant where they had their first date in 1999. My mother had been working tirelessly on a surprise slideshow featuring photos and video messages from family members across the country, many of whom couldn't travel to Denver for the celebration. Emma had known about this dinner for 2 months. She had circled the date on her calendar. It even helped me pick out a special gift for my parents. It expressed genuine excitement about celebrating this milestone with the people who had become like a second family to her. My mother had specifically mentioned how much it would mean to have Emma there, especially since she had missed the last few family gatherings. Everything seemed perfectly planned until Tyler Morrison entered our social circle. And with him, the beginning of the end of everything I thought I knew about love, loyalty, and what it meant to truly choose someone. Tyler was everything I wasn't. Spontaneous where I was thoughtful, flashy where I was understated, was always ready with a party invitation where I preferred meaningful conversations. He had transferred to our university junior year from somewhere in California, bringing with him an energy that seemed to captivate everyone around him, especially Emma. Within weeks of meeting our friend group, Tyler had positioned himself as the social coordinator, always knowing about the best parties, the coolest new restaurants, the most exclusive events happening around Denver. What I didn't realize at the time was that Tyler's arrival would become the catalyst that would finally expose the truth about Emma's priorities, and ultimately lead me to someone who would show me what it really meant to choose love over everything else. Tyler Morrison wasn't just charismatic. He was calculated in ways that took me months to fully understand. He had this ability to read people and situations, identifying exactly what someone needed to hear or feel to be drawn into his orbit. With Emma, he seemed to understand instinctively that she craved excitement and validation, 2 things that my steady, relationship-focused approach couldn't always provide in the dramatic doses she apparently desired. The first time I noticed something shifting was during a group study session at the university library. Our friend group had gathered to work on a major project for our capstone business course, and Tyler had somehow managed to turn what should have been a productive evening into an impromptu social event. He kept making jokes that had Emma laughing so hard she couldn't concentrate on her work. He seemed to have an endless supply of stories about wild adventures and celebrity encounters from his time in California. What bothered me wasn't just that Emma was clearly entertained by Tyler's antics, but how she seemed to transform around him. The thoughtful, ambitious woman I had fallen in love with became almost giddy, hanging on his every word and contributing to the chaos, rather than trying to refocus on our academic responsibilities. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. When I gently suggested that we should probably get back to work since we all had deadlines approaching, Emma rolled her eyes and accused me of being too serious all the time. Tyler immediately jumped to Emma's defense, saying something about how life was too short to spend every moment buried in textbooks, how successful people knew when to work hard and when to live a little. The comment was clearly directed at me, but delivered with such a charming smile that calling him out would have made me look petty and jealous. This became Tyler's signature move, undermining me while maintaining plausible deniability, always. With that infectious grin that made people want to be on his side, over the following weeks, Tyler began inserting himself into more and more of our social activities. He would show up uninvited to group dinners. Somehow always managing to secure the seat next to Emma, he started a group chat for our friend circle that somehow became dominated by his party invitations and inside jokes that seemed designed to make anyone not constantly available feel left out. Most concerning to me, he began planning activities that directly conflicted with commitments Emma had already made with me or my family. The pattern became unmistakable once I started paying attention. Tyler would casually mention some amazing opportunity or event, making it sound spontaneous and exclusive, right when Emma and I had existing plans. A last-minute concert featuring a band Emma loved, scheduled for the same evening we were supposed to have dinner with my parents. A weekend ski trip to Vail that happened to coincide with my cousin's wedding that Emma had already agreed to attend as my date. A networking event with local PR professionals that conflicted with a quiet anniversary dinner I had planned for us. Each time, Tyler would present these conflicts as cosmic coincidences, expressing disappointment that the timing wasn't better, while making it clear that these opportunities might not come around again. He had this way of making everything sound urgent and unmissable, as if choosing stability over spontaneity was a character flaw rather than a sign of maturity and reliability. Emma started coming to me with these conflicts as if they were impossible, dilemmas that required careful consideration, rather than simple choices between honoring existing commitments and chasing new thrills. She would present Tyler's invitations with such enthusiasm that it became clear what she wanted to do, then look to me to either give permission or be the bad guy who held her back from amazing experiences. I found myself in an impossible position. If I expressed discomfort with Emma, constantly prioritizing Tyler's last-minute plans over our existing commitments, I was being controlling and insecure. If I tried to be understanding and flexible, I was essentially training her to see our relationship as less important than whatever exciting opportunity Tyler dangled in front of her next. There was no winning scenario, and Tyler seemed to understand this dynamic perfectly. The breaking point almost came during spring break, when Tyler organized a group trip to Las Vegas that would have required Emma to skip my grandmother's funeral service. My grandmother had passed away suddenly, and the service was scheduled for the same weekend. Tyler had been planning this Vegas adventure for weeks. When Emma actually hesitated about which event to prioritize, I realized how far we had drifted from the relationship I thought we were building. She ultimately chose to attend the funeral with me, but spent most of the weekend texting with Tyler and the group about everything she was missing in Las Vegas. During the service itself, I caught her scrolling through social media posts from the trip, looking genuinely sad about not being there. My grief over losing my grandmother was compounded by the realization that the woman I loved was more invested in Tyler's party than in supporting me through one of the most difficult moments of my life. After that weekend, I tried to have serious conversations with Emma about the direction our relationship was heading. I explained how hurt I felt by her constant prioritization of Tyler's plans over our commitments, and how it seemed like she was checking out of the future we had discussed building together. These conversations never went well. Emma would become defensive, accusing me of being jealous of her friendships and trying to isolate her from her social circle. She would point out all the times she had chosen me over Tyler's invitations, conveniently forgetting that those few instances were heavily outnumbered by the times she had done the opposite. She accused me of not trusting her judgment and of trying to control her social life, suggesting that my concerns said more about my own insecurities than about any real problems in our relationship. Tyler, meanwhile, continued to play the role of the supportive friend who just wanted everyone to have fun and live their best lives. He never directly criticized me or our relationship, but he had subtle ways of planting seeds of doubt in Emma's mind about whether she was settling for something too conventional and safe. He would make comments about how young we were, how many experiences were still out there to explore, how important it was to really know yourself before making major life commitments. The most insidious part of Tyler's influence was how he made Emma question whether choosing stability and reliability was actually a sign of fear rather than wisdom. He painted spontaneity and constant excitement as markers of a life fully lived, while implying that people who valued consistency and commitment were somehow limiting themselves out of anxiety or lack of imagination. I watched Emma begin to adopt Tyler's perspective, starting to view our relationship through the lens of what she might be missing rather than what we were building together. She began expressing doubts about whether we were too young to be so serious, whether we should both be exploring other options before settling down, whether the comfort and security of our relationship was actually preventing her from growing as a person. These doubts might have been healthy and normal if they had emerged organically from Emma's own self-reflection, but it was clear that Tyler was carefully cultivating them as part of a larger strategy to position himself as the more exciting alternative to our committed relationship. He never made direct moves on Emma, never crossed obvious lines. But he created an environment where choosing him over me would feel like choosing adventure over safety, growth over stagnation, possibility over limitation. As my parents' anniversary dinner approached, I found myself hoping that this milestone celebration would remind Emma of what real love looked like after 25 years of choosing each other through every challenge and opportunity. I thought that seeing my parents' joy and commitment might help her remember why we had started talking about building a similar future together. Instead, Tyler had other plans that would test Emma's priorities in ways that would finally reveal where I really stood in her hierarchy of values. And those plans would ultimately lead to revelations that none of us saw coming, least of all Emma herself. The text message came at 2:47 p.m. on Friday afternoon, exactly 26 hours before my parents' anniversary dinner was scheduled to begin. I was sitting in my marketing internship office, putting finishing touches on a campaign proposal, when my phone buzzed with Emma's name on the screen. The message was short, casual, and devastating in its complete lack of awareness about what she was actually saying. "Hey, babe. Tyler's throwing this incredible house party tomorrow night at his loft. He got this amazing DJ from Los Angeles, and there's going to be people from like 3 different universities. I know we have your parents' thing, but this is literally going to be the party of the year. Everyone's talking about it. Can we maybe reschedule dinner with your folks?" I stared at the message for a full minute, reading it over and over again, waiting for a follow-up text that would indicate she was joking or had somehow forgotten the significance of the date. When no such message came, I felt something fundamental shift inside my chest, like a foundation that had been slowly cracking, finally giving way completely. This wasn't just another conflict between Tyler's social events and our existing plans. This was my parents' 25th wedding anniversary, a milestone they had been planning and looking forward to for months. Emma had known about this dinner since February. She had helped me choose the perfect gift, a custom photo album filled with pictures from their entire relationship. She had specifically asked my mother what kind of flowers she should bring, and my mom had spent 20 minutes on the phone with her discussing the significance of the restaurant and the memories it held for their family. I called Emma immediately, hoping that hearing my voice would help her understand the magnitude of what she was suggesting. The phone rang 4 times before she answered. I could hear music and laughter in the background, the sounds of Tyler's voice among others. "Jake, hey, did you see my text? This party is going to be absolutely insane. Tyler knows people everywhere, and he's been planning this for weeks. Sophie Chen is even coming. You remember her from our sociology class, right? She's been studying abroad in Italy, and this is like her welcome back celebration too." The casual way Emma mentioned Sophie's name should have registered more significantly in that moment, but I was too focused on the immediate crisis to pay attention to details that would later prove crucial. Instead, I found myself struggling to keep my voice level as I tried to explain why her request was so hurtful and unreasonable. "Emma, this is my parents' 25th anniversary. This isn't just some random dinner we can move around. My mom has been working on a surprise slideshow for 3 weeks. They made reservations at Milano's because that's where they had their first date. My aunt is flying in from Phoenix specifically for this dinner. How can you possibly think this is something we can just reschedule?" There was a pause on Emma's end, and for a moment I thought she was processing the weight of what I was saying. Instead, when she spoke again, her tone had shifted to defensive irritation. "Jake, I get that it's important to your family, but it's not like it's their actual wedding or anything. They've been married for 25 years. They'll have plenty more anniversaries. This party is happening once, right now, and everyone is going to be there. Tyler specifically invited me and said he really wants me to meet some of his connections. In the PR world, this could be huge for my career." The rational part of my brain understood that Emma was 23 years old and that career networking was important. But the emotional reality of what she was saying hit me like a physical blow. She was reducing my parents' silver anniversary to just another date night. Something less important than Tyler's party and the career opportunities it might provide. "Emma, these connections Tyler has, are they really more important than showing respect to the people who have treated you like family for 3 years? My parents specifically asked about you. My mom bought extra flowers for the table because she wanted you to feel included in this celebration. How do I explain to them that you chose Tyler's party over their anniversary?" I could hear Tyler's voice getting closer to Emma's phone, and suddenly he was talking in the background, though I couldn't make out the words. Emma's response, when it came, sounded like she was repeating talking points rather than expressing her own thoughts. "You know what, Jake? Of our relationship, I'm not asking you to skip your parents' dinner. You can go and represent both of us. I'll send them a really nice card and some flowers. But I'm not going to miss this opportunity just because you can't handle me having a social life." The accusation of insecurity was Tyler's fingerprint on the conversation. His way of reframing Emma's choice as being about my character flaws rather than her priorities. But it was the suggestion that she could skip the dinner and represent both of us with a card and flowers that finally broke something inside me that had been holding on desperately for months. "Emma, do you hear yourself right now? You're talking about my parents' 25th anniversary like it's a casual dinner you can skip for party favors? These are people who have opened their home to you, who have included you in every major a family event, who have talked about how excited they are to have you be part of our family's future, and you want to send them a card instead?" The background noise on Emma's end was getting louder, and I could hear Tyler organizing some kind of group activity. When Emma spoke again, her voice had the distracted quality of someone whose attention was already elsewhere. "Look, Jake, I've made my decision. I'm going to Tyler's party. Your parents will understand, they're adults. Maybe you should try being a little more spontaneous sometimes instead of always being so rigid about everything." Tyler's right. We're only young once, and these opportunities don't come around all the time. The call ended there with Emma hanging up before I could respond. I sat in my office chair staring at my phone, feeling like I had just watched the final scene of a movie I thought was going to have a different ending. That evening, I drove to my parents' house to help with preparations for the anniversary dinner. My mother was in the kitchen arranging flowers and setting out family photos. humming softly to herself with the kind of happiness that comes from celebrating a life well lived with someone you love. My father was in the living room, adjusting the lighting for the slideshow presentation and organizing thank you cards from family members who couldn't attend. When they asked about Emma, I found myself making excuses that sounded hollow even to me. I told them she wasn't feeling well, that she had come down with something suddenly and didn't want to risk getting anyone sick. The lies felt bitter in my mouth, but I couldn't bring myself to tell my parents that the woman they had welcomed into their family had chosen a party over their milestone anniversary. My mother's face fell with genuine concern and disappointment. She had specifically planned the seating arrangement to include Emma, had even prepared a small speech thanking her for bringing such joy into their son's life. My father, who rarely expressed emotion openly, looked quietly hurt that Emma wouldn't be there to witness this celebration of the kind of love and commitment he hoped his son would find. That night, as I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, I made a decision that would change everything. I wasn't going to spend the rest of my relationship making excuses for Emma's choices or pretending that her priorities aligned with mine when they clearly didn't. If she wanted to choose Tyler's world of constant parties and superficial connections over the deep, lasting relationships that actually mattered, that was her choice to make. But I was done being the person who begged her to choose love and loyalty when those things held no real value for her. Tomorrow would be my parents' anniversary dinner, and it would also be the night I finally stopped waiting for Emma, become someone she clearly had no intention of being. What I didn't know was that Tyler's party would end up being much more revealing than anyone expected, and that the night would bring surprises that would reshape everything I thought I knew about the people in my life, including someone who had been waiting patiently for me to notice what real love actually looked like. Saturday evening arrived with the kind of crisp October air that made Denver feel magical, perfect weather for celebrating love that had endured for 25 years. I dressed carefully for my parents' anniversary dinner, choosing the navy blue suit my father had helped me pick out for job interviews. Wanting to honor the significance of the occasion, even though my heart felt hollow, at Milano's restaurant, the private dining room my parents had reserved was decorated with soft lighting and elegant floral arrangements. My Aunt Patricia had indeed flown in from Phoenix, along with my uncle and 2 cousins I hadn't seen in over a year. Family friends who had watched my parents' love story unfold over 2.5 decades filled the intimate space with warmth and laughter. My mother looked radiant in the emerald green dress she had been saving for a special occasion, her eyes bright with happiness as she greeted each guest. My father, normally reserved in social settings, was animated and joyful, clearly moved by the effort everyone had made to celebrate this milestone with them. Watching them together, seeing how they naturally gravitated toward each other even. After 25 years, I felt a profound sadness about what Emma was missing by choosing Tyler's party instead. The dinner itself was everything my parents had hoped it would be. The slideshow my mother had prepared brought tears to everyone's eyes as we watched their love story unfold through decades of photographs and video messages. There were pictures from their early dating years, their wedding day, the purchase of their first home, my birth and childhood milestones, family vacations, and quiet moments that captured the daily reality of building a life together through both joy and challenges. During the toasts, family members shared stories about my parents' relationship that I had never heard before. My uncle told us about how my father had driven 8 hours through a snowstorm to be with my mother when her grandfather passed away, even though they had only been dating for 3 months. My aunt described how my mother had quietly supported my father through a difficult career transition in their early marriage, working double shifts as a nurse while he went back to school. For his business degree, these weren't dramatic, movie-worthy gestures. They painted a picture of 2 people who had consistently chosen each other through every season of life. They had prioritized their relationship and their family through career changes, financial struggles, health scares, and all the ordinary challenges that test long-term partnerships. The contrast with Emma's decision to prioritize Tyler's party over this celebration couldn't have been more stark. As the evening wound down and we prepared to leave the restaurant, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. The message was brief but intriguing. "Hey Jake, this is Sophie Chen. I got your number from the university directory." I'm at Tyler's party right now, and I think you should know what's happening here. Can we meet somewhere to talk? Sophie Chen. I remembered her from our sociology class junior year. A quiet, thoughtful student who had always impressed me with her insightful comments during class discussions. She had studied abroad in Italy for the past year, and I vaguely recalled Emma mentioning that Sophie would be at Tyler's party as some kind of welcome-back celebration. The fact that she was reaching out to me, especially with such an urgent tone, sent a chill down my spine. I texted back asking where she wanted to meet, and she suggested Mountain Brew Café, the same coffee shop where Emma and I had first connected 3 years earlier. The irony wasn't lost on me, but I agreed to meet her there in 30 minutes. The drive to the coffee shop gave me time to process the evening's emotional complexity. I felt proud of my parents and grateful to have witnessed such a beautiful celebration of lasting love. But I also felt a growing clarity about the fundamental differences between Emma's values and my own. She had chosen excitement over depth, novelty over loyalty, and Tyler's validation over our relationship's foundation. Sophie was waiting at a corner table when I arrived, looking troubled and nursing what appeared to be her second cup of coffee. She had changed since I last saw her, carrying herself with a confidence that suggested her year abroad had been transformative. When she looked up and saw me approaching, her expression was a mixture of sympathy and determination. "Thank you for meeting me," she said as I sat down across from her. "I wasn't sure if I should reach out, but after what I witnessed tonight, I couldn't stay silent. You deserve to know what Emma and Tyler have really been up to." The words hit me like cold water, confirming fears I had been trying to suppress for months. Sophie proceeded to tell me about arriving at Tyler's party, expecting a casual welcome-back gathering, only to discover that it was clearly designed as a romantic setup between Tyler and Emma. The apartment had been decorated with an intimacy that went far beyond friendship, complete with dim lighting, couple-oriented activities, and sleeping arrangements that suggested overnight guests were expected. Jake, within 10 minutes of being there, it was obvious that Emma and Tyler had been building toward this for weeks, maybe months. It's the way they were touching each other, finishing each other's sentences, sharing inside jokes that excluded everyone else in the room. Emma was wearing this dress that was clearly chosen to impress Tyler specifically, and he kept making comments about how beautiful she looked, how free and authentic she seemed. Sophie paused, clearly struggling with whether to continue then, took a deep breath and pressed forward. "The most disturbing part was listening to Emma talk about you and your relationship. Tyler kept asking her questions that were obviously designed to make her criticize you, and she was going along with it. She was telling everyone how controlling you were, how you never wanted to do anything spontaneous, how you were holding her back from really experiencing life." The details Sophie shared painted a picture of emotional betrayal that cut deeper than I had imagined possible. Emma hadn't just chosen Tyler's party over my parents' anniversary. She had used that choice as an opportunity to publicly diminish our entire relationship while positioning herself as Tyler's romantic interest. "But here's the thing, Jake," Sophie continued, her voice growing stronger. "It's watching Emma tonight, seeing how she was willing to throw away 3 years with someone who clearly loved her for a guy who obviously just sees her as another conquest. It made me realize something I should have told you years ago." Sophie looked directly into my eyes, and I saw something there that I hadn't noticed during our college classes together. There was depth, genuine care, and an emotional honesty that felt like cool water after months of Emma's games and manipulation. "I've had feelings for you since our sociology class junior year. I know that probably sounds crazy given the timing. I'm not telling you this to take advantage of what's happening with Emma, but watching you tonight, seeing how you chose to honor your parents and your family, even when it would have been easier to make excuses or cause drama, it reminded me why I've always admired you." The confession was unexpected, but felt like a gift in ways I couldn't fully process in that moment. Sophie wasn't trying to manipulate me or position herself as a rebound. She was simply being honest about her feelings while offering me information. I needed to make informed decisions about my relationship with Emma. "Sophie, I had no idea you felt that way," I said, realizing as I spoke that I was seeing her clearly for the first time. I was so focused on Emma and all her drama that I never noticed what was right in front of me. We talked for another hour, and I found myself remembering why I had always enjoyed our class discussions. Sophie was intellectually curious, emotionally mature, and genuinely interested in building something meaningful rather than just seeking constant entertainment. She had spent her year in Italy studying art history and working with local families, experiences that had deepened her appreciation for authentic relationships and lasting values. When I finally left the coffee shop that night, I felt something I hadn't experienced in months: genuine excitement about the future. Not because Sophie represented an easy solution to my Emma problems, but because she had reminded me what it felt like to connect with someone who shared my values and actually wanted to build something real together. Emma had made her choice, prioritizing Tyler's party and the shallow excitement he represented over everything we had built together. But her choice had also freed me to finally see what I had been missing, and to recognize that real love wasn't about dramatic gestures or constant entertainment. It was about showing up, being consistent, and choosing each other even when more exciting options were available. The next morning would bring confrontations that would force everyone to face the consequences of their choices. But for the first time in months, I felt ready for whatever came next. Sunday morning arrived with Emma pounding on my apartment door at 8 a.m., looking disheveled and frantic in ways I had never seen before. She was still wearing the same dress from Tyler's party, her makeup smeared and her hair tangled, but it was the desperation in her eyes that caught me off guard. Through the peephole, I could see her pacing back and forth in the hallway, checking her phone repeatedly and muttering to herself. When I opened the door, she immediately pushed past me into the apartment, spinning around to face me with wild energy that suggested she hadn't slept at all. Her first words weren't an apology for missing my parents' anniversary or an acknowledgement of the choice she had made. Instead, she launched into accusations that revealed just how distorted her perspective had become. "Jake, how could you do this to me? Sophie told me she saw you last night at that coffee shop. You were supposed to be at your parents' dinner, not meeting up with other women behind my back. Do you have any idea how humiliating it was for me to find out from her that my own boyfriend was sneaking around while I was at a party?" The audacity of her anger left me speechless for several seconds. Emma had abandoned our relationship to pursue Tyler at his party, had publicly criticized me to their mutual friends, and was now accusing me of betrayal for having a conversation with Sophie about her behavior. The complete lack of self-awareness was stunning. But it also crystallized everything I needed to understand about who Emma really was underneath all the charm and excitement. "Emma, you chose Tyler's party over my parents' 25th anniversary dinner. You spent the evening telling his friends how controlling and boring I am while positioning yourself as his romantic interest. Sophie told me everything that happened last night, including how you were planning to stay overnight at his loft, and you're angry at me for meeting her for coffee." Emma's face went through a series of expressions as she processed what I was saying. First confusion, then defensive anger, then something that looked almost like panic as she realized that her actions had been witnessed and reported. But instead of acknowledging the reality of what she had done, she doubled down on attacking me. "Sophie is lying. Jake, she's always been jealous of our relationship, and now she's trying to break us up by telling you twisted versions of what happened. Tyler and I are just friends. The party was innocent fun, and if I stayed late, it was because everyone was having such a good time. You're being paranoid and controlling, just like Tyler said you would be." The mention of Tyler's predictions about my reaction was the final confirmation I needed. Their relationship had progressed to the point where they were analyzing my personality and predicting my responses to their betrayal. Emma wasn't just choosing Tyler over me. She was actively collaborating with him to justify and minimize her behavior. "Emma, this conversation is over. We're done. I'm not going to keep defending myself against accusations while you rewrite history to avoid taking responsibility for your choices. You wanted Tyler's party more than my family's milestone celebration. You made that choice, and now you get to live with the consequences." The finality in my voice seemed to break through Emma's defensive anger. And for the first time since she had arrived, she looked genuinely frightened. She started crying, not the manipulative tears she had used in previous arguments, but the desperate crying of someone who was finally understanding that their actions had permanent consequences. "Jake, please don't do this. Made a mistake, but we can work through this. Tyler doesn't mean anything to me. I was just caught up in the excitement of the party. I love you. I want to marry you someday. I want the life we talked about building. Together, please don't throw away 3 years over one stupid decision. For a moment, looking at Emma's genuine distress, I felt the familiar pull to comfort her and try to fix our relationship problems through understanding and compromise. But then I remembered my parents at their anniversary dinner radiating joy and gratitude for 25 years of choosing each other through every challenge. I remembered Sophie's honesty and emotional maturity the night before, willingness to tell me difficult truths because she cared about my well-being more than her own comfort. Emma, this wasn't one stupid decision. This was the culmination of months of you prioritizing Tyler and his world over our relationship and my family. You've shown me who you really are and what you actually value. I believe you when you say you love me. But love isn't enough when someone fundamentally doesn't respect the things that matter most to you. Emma left my apartment that morning, still crying and making promises about changing her behavior and prioritizing our relationship differently. But I knew that real change required acknowledging problems honestly, not just promising to do better when faced with consequences. Emma had spent months justifying her choices and blaming me for being too rigid or traditional. She wasn't ready for the kind of self-reflection that genuine change would require. Later that afternoon, Sophie called to check on me and see how I was processing everything. We ended up talking for hours, and I found myself sharing thoughts and feelings that I had been keeping bottled up for months. Sophie listened without judgment and offered perspectives that helped me understand my own experiences more clearly. Over the following weeks, Sophie and I began spending more time together, but we approached the relationship with careful intention rather than rushing into something that might be built on rebound emotions. We took long walks through Denver's downtown area, explored art galleries and bookstores, and had conversations about our goals and values that felt like foundations for something lasting. The contrast with Emma was striking. Where Emma had needed constant entertainment and validation, Sophie found joy in simple moments and meaningful conversations. Where Emma had viewed my family relationships as obligations that competed with her social life, Sophie was genuinely interested in getting to know my parents and understanding the values that had shaped me. 6 months later, when Sophie and I decided to make our relationship official, my parents were thrilled, but not surprised. They had seen how peaceful and confident I had become, how the constant tension and anxiety of trying to manage Emma's unpredictable behavior had been replaced with the calm joy of being with someone who chose me consistently. Emma, meanwhile, discovered that Tyler's interest in her had been primarily about the challenge of winning her away from me. Once that goal was accomplished, he quickly moved on to pursuing other women, leaving Emma to face the reality that she had sacrificed a stable, loving relationship for someone who had never been genuinely invested in her as a person. Through mutual friends that Emma had tried dating several other men over the following year, but struggled to find anyone willing to tolerate the same patterns of behavior that had destroyed our relationship. The constant need for excitement and validation, the inability to prioritize lasting relationships over immediate gratification, and the tendency to blame others for the consequences of her own choices proved to be deal breakers for most mature men. As for Tyler, his reputation as someone who deliberately pursued women in committed relationships eventually caught up with him. Word spread through Denver's social circles about his behavior, and he found himself increasingly isolated as both men and women recognized him as someone who couldn't be trusted around their relationships. Today, Sophie and I have been married for 2 years. We have a beautiful daughter who has brought even more joy and purpose to our lives. We built our relationship on the foundation of shared values, mutual respect, and the understanding that real love means choosing each other even when more exciting options are available. Sometimes I think about what my life would have looked like if I had continued trying to make things work with Emma. If I had kept compromising my values and accepting her behavior in the name of love. I'm grateful every day that her choice to prioritize Tyler's party over my parents' anniversary dinner finally gave me the clarity I needed to recognize what I actually deserved in a partner. The best relationships aren't built on constant excitement and drama. They're built on the quiet daily choice to show up for each other, to honor commitments, and to prioritize the people who truly matter. Emma taught me what I didn't want in a partner, but Sophie showed me what real love actually looks like when it's offered by someone who understands that love is a verb, not just a feeling. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out.